Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first we just hit 2,410 subscribers to the YouTube channel. Big jump from yesterday. Shout out to all the subscribers, and as always, special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, especially elite channel members Y2KHA, Brandon Mikel, Rip, Scott Todd, Hasher for MVP, VGK Tiger 75, and Salacious Crumb. All right, we've now had coming up on a full day, about 18 hours to digest the news of the offensive coordinator hire. Had 18 to 19 hours to really think about it, try to understand what it means, what it represents, what it indicates for the future. And I was planning on making a video about this particular thing anyway, and this hire actually does kind of a neat job playing into what I was going to talk about in a positive way. And that's good, because had we hired the wrong offensive coordinator, then I would have said, well, this is coming to fruition in a very negative way. So after the Seahawks season ended, I immediately took note of the way in which the players were choosing their words with the media and in interviews, and it was really interesting to me. I talked about it a little bit in stream. I didn't make any specific videos about it until now, but I definitely noticed a couple things. I remember a quote from Tyler Lockett after the game where he basically called out Brian Schottenheimer for not doing a good job, and that kind of caught my eye. And I remember Carroll saying something similar, which obviously, hey, that's a big thing. I remember Wilson saying something like that, honestly, which is really weird given what he ended up saying after we let Schottenheimer go. But in any case, I remember noting the way in which things were being worded, and it was a little more aggressive and confrontational than you're used to seeing from NFL players, I think. So the first thing that really caught my attention after the firing of Brian Schottenheimer were the words from Russell Wilson. So we have this article from the News Tribune close to 2 weeks ago by Greg Bell. Good follow on Twitter if you still use Twitter, which I don't. I was not and am not in favor of Seahawks firing Brian Schottenheimer. And that was interesting to me when Wilson said that. And, you know, the full quote, the actual quote was, "No. You ask me, am I in favor of it? No." It being firing Brian Schottenheimer. Now, he did go on to make some more politically correct comments along the lines of, ultimately, I didn't get to make the decision. That's something that Carroll gets to do. Ultimately, I just want to win. I do he said the politically correct stuff after. But it caught my attention that instead of just keeping it PC, he went out there and said, no, I don't like this. Now, Schottenheimer clearly had to go. I think most of us agree on that. And if Wilson couldn't see the fact that we needed to move on from Brian Schottenheimer, then that's his problem. This is clearly a move that the team needed to make at this point. And I respect the fact that Wilson probably likes Schottenheimer and appreciates all the stuff he did for him while they were together. But he could have simply said, hey, this is a business. I love Brian. I love what he did for us for 3 years. I appreciate all the stuff he brought here, but ultimately, I'm looking to win games, and I'm looking to work with whoever comes in next. He could have just said that. So I saw this, and I remember thinking to myself, there's some drama going on here, and we talked about this a lot in the call-in stream, actually. There's some backroom drama between Wilson and Carroll. These guys are not getting along right now. They are not on the same wavelength right now. And I remember thinking, this offensive coordinator hire is going to tell us a lot about where this relationship is and who, if anybody, is going to win this power struggle. Because if we brought in somebody like a Kirby Wilson, my thinking was that, well, Pete's taking control and Wilson's either going to want out of here or Pete wants him out of here. I remember thinking that these comments tell me that people are starting to get pretty irritated with the way things are going right now. And I'm not putting it all on Pete necessarily either. I actually know I have inside sources, laugh all you want, but I do, who tell me the front office is very unhappy with Wilson right now. So I remember reading this and thinking to myself, something is bubbling underneath the surface. And then a few days ago, DK Metcalf went on I Am Athlete, the podcast run by Brandon Marshall, and this further emphasized what I thought I was seeing, in that the players and the coach are starting to become a little divided. So here's the DK Metcalf stuff from a couple days ago on Brandon Marshall's podcast, where he basically said, teams just started to figure us out. We've been running deep pass ever since Pete Carroll got there. Play action, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, go deep. Teams just said, we're not going to let you all go deep. And it was very interesting to me that DK Metcalf would specifically name Pete Carroll in this quote, as if he's trying to call Carroll out and say Carroll is the issue, because, you know, we've been running deep pass ever since Pete Carroll got there. Pete Carroll has been here way longer than Schottenheimer, so he's not even really calling out Schottenheimer after he got fired. He seems to be pinpointing Pete as the reason why teams started to figure us out. So I remember thinking, wow, this is really becoming a player versus coach thing, and something's about to blow up. And I agree with everything Metcalf said. You cannot argue with anything he said factually. He's clearly correct. But I also said to myself, do you really want to be making comments like that about your head coach when you know the head coach is going to be there for a long time? You know, DK has no guarantee that he's going to be there for a long time. Pete, for the moment, is going to stay here as long as he wants to. I don't like that, but I remember thinking to myself, is this going to fester into something that ends with DK not being a Seahawk for much longer? And I thought to myself, if we hire some boring retread or some uninteresting offensive coordinator, it's going to really signal to me that it's going to be Splitsville for this franchise and a couple of these big high-profile players. Or at the very least, these players are going to be really unhappy about it. Come yesterday, good news. It seems like Pete Carroll gave. It seems like Pete Carroll listened to what these players had to say. He didn't go get Scott Linehan. He didn't go get Kirby Wilson. He didn't go get somebody who would have been perceived negatively by these players who want to enter the modern era of NFL offense. He actually went out and got somebody who is connected to a very modern and very capable and respected NFL offense. So I have to say, this actually now encourages me. It seems like Pete Carroll heard what Wilson and Metcalf were kind of insinuating, and he listened. So while I acknowledge the risk of this blowing up in my face in a year, maybe 2 years, I seem to see some signs that Pete Carroll is actually taking what these players are concerned about, and he's listening. And if that is the case, and of course I'm making assumptions here, for all we know, Shane Waldron is going to come in and be Scott Linehan 2.0 or Kirby Wilson 2.0, or just implement an offensive attack that is no better than what we would have had with one of those guys anyway. But I take this as a very positive sign. I think that this hire represents Carroll going, okay, this isn't really what I want to do. This isn't really how I view how NFL offense is supposed to work. But you know what? I'm going to trust that somebody else knows better than I do. I'm going to trust that other teams in the league and my players maybe know a little bit better than I do when it comes to this particular subject. And we'll know more once the season starts, of course, which is a long way away. But I just find it very interesting that we went to go hire somebody from the Sean McVay tree, somebody with no play calling experience, which I have to believe Pete wasn't a big fan of, somebody with very little overall experience as a meaningful member of a staff. He was a tight end coach a lot, whoop-dee. But, yeah, so the more I think about it, the more I like this, not because I'm convinced that Shane Waldron is going to be an amazing coordinator, but I like it a lot because it seems like he might be starting to listen. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. Peace out, go Hawks. See you guys in stream tonight. And look, you can call me overly optimistic if you want to, but this is how I see things right now. And I don't know. The more I think about it, the more encouraged I am by this hire and what it represents. Peace out.